Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today, let's ask the question, how likely is it that your users are going to be connected to the internet? Back in July, there was a really good report released by the ITU, which is the International Telecommunications Union, right? And it was all about internet connectivity and talking about, the youth on the internet and how, like 70% of the world's youth are now online. And they had this really good graph, or these really good statistics there on mobile broadband usage, right? So I'll link to the report down below in the notes, but have a look at this graph here. Right now, this graph shows the number of active mobile broadband subscriptions since 2007, so 10 years ago. So we're talking about like right at the beginning of the iPhone coming out, right? So we're talking about not that many people had internet, at least broadband subscriptions. And of course, if we didn't all have a mobile internet, we wouldn't be able to use things like Instagram or instant messaging apps and everything. While we're out, we'd always have to rely on Wi-Fi and everything, right? But it shows here the rise of subscriptions going all the way from just 268 million in 2007 all the way up to 4.2 billion now. Which I looked at that, and first of all, it's a really good statistic because you think the problems that we have with mobile applications, the more people get faster connections on the go, then the more that we can do as developers. But I looked at that and I thought, that seems like a bit high for what it is, right? So, I know lots of people who don't have broadband subscriptions when they're out and about. They connect on Wi-Fi when they go places, or they might have a very slow connection, right? And when I looked at, if you have a look at the next graph where it's actually broken up by region, you can see most of it actually comes from Asia and Pacific. I mean, Asia and Pacific are really just, they're just kicking ass when it comes to mobile broadband. I mean, they got pretty much, nearly half of it or more than half of it there, right? And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because internet connectivity is one of the things we think about most when we do applications. Well, it depends on the nature of the app. If you have a game that works completely offline, you may not think about it that much. But if you do something that's, you have various degrees of what you could do with or without a connection. One of the things I always try to sell all my clients on is the app will work offline as well as online. So one of the things we always do is we have it download data. Every time the app opens up or comes back from a pause state, it will check to see if there's been any changes in the data. And we'll do that in various ways depending on the client and the capabilities of the client. Sometimes it might be as simple as just having like a JSON file on a network someplace. If we can get them into like Firebase or some other back-end API, then we can do remote config. That's a big help. And sometimes they might just have their own API, and we just once I open up the app, download everything, store it locally, use the local storage unless you can't. So always keep checking for changes. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that your server keeps track of the state. So you want to be able to say, give me everything that's changed since an hour ago or whatever. So you're not downloading the entire contents of the data each time, right? And it's just one of the things we even before when I talk to clients, was one of the big concerns that they have, right? And when I'm testing an app, one of the things that I always look for is, how does this thing respond to internet outages? So a lot of times with junior developers, actually that's not really fair to say. It's just one of the when you're working with a developer and everything's coding, everything's working, and then you shut off internet to see what happens. And in the worst case scenarios, the app crashes and you have to kill the app and open it again because nothing's handled. In the best cases, it'll say your internet is no longer available. Your message will be sent as soon as you go back online. That's the best kind of situation. But it all depends on the nature of the application. If you have a game that doesn't require network and the only thing you need to worry about is maybe saving to a leaderboard, maybe showing ads, and it's not such a big case. If you have something like a messaging app, which you can have everything stored offline so they can still view the old messages, but it's really useless unless you can actually save things online. Then that, of course, network connectivity is more important. But hopefully when you look at stats like that, this may be something that in years to come, that we're, internet connectivity on mobile devices is something we take for granted. I mean, heck, maybe everybody else takes it for granted now, and it's just me who's like being the Luddite thinking, oh no, we got to make sure the internet connection's there, right? So the same way like with web developers. It used to be web developers, you'd have two classes. You'd have, the developers that would just do everything that was cutting edge, and you'd have the ones who were always afraid that people would turn off JavaScript. Even though, like, nobody ever turned off JavaScript, or very few people did, but some people were always like, we got to make sure if somebody turns off JavaScript, everything fails gracefully. But, it hardly ever happens. So anyway, those are just my thoughts for today. That's it. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.